Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Product in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight on some of the exceptional product leaders we have as part of the LA product community. And on today's episode, very excited to have Mark Levy join us.
All right, Ethan, how you doing?
Doing great. Really excited to have you here, Mark.
Right.
This episode is brought to you by Uruit, a new sponsor to the show. Uruit, URUIT.com. They're a team of strategists, product managers, designers, and developers that build digital solutions that wow customers and stakeholders alike. Formed in 2007, they're now a team of 100 product enthusiasts. They've delivered over more than 150 products. To learn more about their services, check them out at uruit.com. That's URUIT.com. We're also brought to you by the Product Managers Association Los Angeles, available at pma.la. They put on monthly events. It's a meetup group of local product managers in Los Angeles. They have over 2,500 members. And an upcoming event in October 27th in Marina del Rey, speaking on enterprise product management and how that differs from some B2C product management. They also have a mentorship program where they connect working product managers with students from underrepresented groups to create a more diverse and better next generation of product people. You can check that out at pma.la/mentorship. As I mentioned, our guest today is Mark Levy. Very excited to have him. Mark is the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Ops MX, and his past roles have included Director of Product Marketing at Micro Focus and Serena Software, as well as VP of Product at Siderian Software. And one interesting fact about Mark is that he's focused on DevOps before it was cool. Yeah. Looking forward to learning more about your journey into product and DevOps. And as product is a hard field sometimes to break into, there's no way to go to school for it. At least it wasn't for the previous generation, the working generation. Excited to learn about how did you get into product, Mark, and also how did you go from product into product DevOps? Yeah. Love to hear the story.
Okay, good. It's been a great journey. Thanks for inviting me, Ethan. And I've been based in LA my entire career, which is an amazing thing too. We'll talk a little bit about that, but just a little background on sort of how I got here is I didn't start out this way, and typical there's a lot of pivots along the way, but I actually studied music. I was a composition theory major in college, and when I was in college, I wanted to be the next Stravinsky, but I was teaching guitar during one Christmas. My students left, and I took a temporary job. It's supposed to be a 6-week job, and decades later, I'm still here, and it was in IT. I started out in IT. The thing that kept me here originally was at first I got introduced to computer languages, and being a composition major, so I came through, basically development. I love computer languages. I studied computer languages, and I spent first part of my career as a software developer. So I came and I loved it. I came, through the development organization into the product side of the house. But still, I spent a decade really as a software developer and an R&D manager.
Okay.
And I learned a lot. And when I first started, product management as a discipline in software was not a formalized thing. It was just starting to ramp up. Developers generally, were sort of driving. It's amazing how it circles around. And I was a developer that was always into like prototyping new features and new things and working, late at night to create the secret sauce. And
okay.
And my first interaction with our product management team, was I developed this prototype that sort of remotely managed this environment that I was working in network system management area. And the head of product management saw it and immediately squished the project. He goes, there's no way we can do that. That would cannibalize our current revenue stream if you release that. And that was and my position was at first, and I was at the time a lead software developer, my position was, well, if we don't develop it, then someone else will.
Right.
So, and it was sort of my first lesson, in product and on the product management side. And sure enough, someone did, this was one main sort of lesson that I learned throughout my career. I faced this career, this problem several times, is that with innovation, if you don't do it, someone else will. You're not going to be the only one. There's a lot of people chasing the dollar, and there's a lot of bright people out there. And you're not the only one. And so that was sort of my first lesson, interaction with product management. So I have sort of these, lesson learned things among my journey. And so I from there, I became a R&D manager, and I was managing R&D teams. And here's the next sort of law that I learned,
okay,
with product management is if you don't do your job, someone else will, And we, at the time, like I mentioned, product management at the time was a pretty new discipline in software development companies. And ours were pretty weak. And I'm an R&D manager. I want to promote my team.
Right.
And I could talk, and I knew the technology. I knew the releases. So I ended up sort of, going out, and the sales guys ended up bringing me on calls. And I ended up doing, sort of the demos and the presentations and I ended up sort of doing the PM job in a lot of ways. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. I loved working with customers. I loved working with understanding the market. I wanted to have a bigger impact than just, writing code. And so at the time, that was when I was asked to come over, and this is sort of when I came over to the dark side, right? From engineering R&D into product management, and I was asked to do that, and I said yeah, because there were some really exciting things at the time. We were just starting to correlate, and so my background's always been around system, network management, enterprise, at the enterprise market, managing performance of systems, and eventually software delivery with DevOps, and we'll get there.
So at an enterprise level, you were mainly B2B,
large company.
Correct?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean that is my core background. Always large companies. And so at the time, we were really interested in, this idea of, well, how does user experience correlate with performance, of the infrastructure that supports it? And how do you do root cause, to a problem if a user has a problem, or how do you understand business impact? If you have some type of problem in your infrastructure, what's the business impact? So
how to measure.
Yeah, and how to measure and correlate and present it. And a lot of our customers, which were like the biggest banks in the world and insurance companies and stuff like that, they really needed that kind of solution at the time. And so I got into PM, right around then. It was sort of early 2000s, post-internet boom and bust.
Right.
Pretty exciting. The start of application service providers. So I was involved in that initiative too. So there's a lot of exciting things going on. I started to, look at product management seriously, as a discipline to work with, and realize that there were a lot of different skills that you have to have other than just technical skills. I mean, you have to have the respect of your dev team, but you also working with sales, working with marketing, working with management, managing up was, all these skills really, you had to sort of develop on the fly. For me, I did, but yeah, it was a very exciting time. And I spent a number of years, of course, in product management. The other thing I would say is just, I'm sort of reflecting, on sort of my career and stuff, is, I probably launched close to 10 version 1 products or something like that. I mean, it's very much different from maintaining, and I've also maintained very large multi-million dollar, thousands of customers, mature products. And those are just different types of skills and approaches that you have to manage. And I like that diversity, I mean,
it all falls under PM.
It does. And you truly can be the CEO of the product. They say that they position that solution, but you have to prove yourself. It's like I said, if you don't do it, someone else will. You have to be able to tell the story with numbers, to back it up. It's not about your opinion. You can ride on that so far for only so long, with your experience and stuff. But I found, it was more a very data intensive position, and that you need to, I found for me to be successful, I had to ensure that I had many different data feeds, on the market, on how we were doing, on our solution, and then based on that data, come to some conclusion on where we want to go.
Yeah, it's interesting that metaphor of the mini CEO. I've definitely found it challenging because yes, you are responsible for this product, but unlike the CEO, you're not the boss. You don't get to be.
That's right.
You have the you don't have the authority. So it's like a CEO who's really who's actually a servant leader, which is never really seen. It's you're still at the mercy really of engineering and sales and marketing. You can influence them. But this idea that you are the CEO, you're in charge of the overall product, it falls flat once it comes down to someone disagrees with you. And
well, this is it. You don't have the absolute authority, right? In a lot of times,
right.
But so what I had to do, and what I would recommend is, again, you got to let others do the talking. Okay, I found really early in my career, like, it's not, I got to get my customers to talk for me, to get Gartner or Forrester or the analysts to talk for me. I'm just the PM's just the conduit, right? We're the channel, and if I do that, then I'm just doing my job, right? It's not, I may make observations and stuff, but that could get shot down. But if I have, data, my decisions are if they're based on real data that I can show, the head of sales or whatever, or the CEO, then I've done my job. And then he can make, ultimately the business decision, right?
So Mark's third law is let someone else do the talking for you.
Yeah. Let it be, based on data, on numbers, because ultimately you're right. The CEO has a responsibility if it's a public company, to shareholders, and he's the ultimate. The buck stops there, and they can make that call. So that I found that and that was great. So so I did that. I sort of around 2005 or so, I left sort of the enterprise space and went into a startup. I never did a startup. We did a startup like within a large company before. I've done that. And one thing I was going to say is back to like I've launched probably 10 1.0s or something like that. I want to say maybe 2 or 3 actually were successful. So there's a lot of failure there.
20%, not too bad.
That's actually, I probably, 20% is a pretty good number. So failure along the way was, of course, enlightening, and no one ever likes it, but you end up learning, quite a bit. I think the key thing is to fail fast.
Right.
And this is back to the sort of the DevOps culture and the whole lean management thing, which I'm such an advocate of. Is failure is okay. You learn, and everyone fails. That's not good, but it's like, can you try and fail as fast as you can? You want to, how do you do that? Well, you want to try and incrementally, deploy, right? Whatever you're working on, the test to get to that failure as quick as possible, so you can, zig and zag. Success is not linear, right? Success is up and down, and there's a J curve and all that kind of stuff. So you want to be able to. That's one of the big lessons learned that I found out. No big bang projects, and Agile's helped, of course, along the way. You really want small batch loads. Think of that as a PM as well. And I think that, and back to the MVP kind of concept. So anyway,
would you be able to double click into your, small batch loads, and as it may relate to one of those launches?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a couple things. Yeah, is at least one of the success things we did. There's 2 things successful that of the sort of releases I did. One was the first one was replacing a legacy large revenue stream with a new service provider cloud platform angle and on the product that we did, and the way I think that both of my successes I would call had sort of followed a similar model. It was myself and the main architect. Okay, so I had like the chief architect and myself were sort of assigned this sort of early project, and we bootstrapped, had a core set of customers that we recruited and worked closely with to get sort of an MVP real quick, right? And
okay.
Much like that process, and then launched it to a sort of a larger group, sort of like progressive delivery kind of thing. We had a small blast radius. We had a good idea. We validated it with a core set of our customers. We then ran it across the typical analyst firms, right, and got their feedback and got their input and got their buy-in. Okay, which is always good because you're going to go back to them later. Analysts, good or bad, they're a very valuable tool. They listen. A lot of customers listen to them, and so you want to get them involved in the process. So early review cycles with them.
So you're talking about working with Gartner or Forrester analysts and soliciting feedback from either prototypes or early launch versions.
So before sort of at the requirements stage release, going to them and saying, here's our where we're headed. So you sort of give them the roadmap and where we're going, what's their feedback and input, use them as a feed. When I talk to them, it's like talking to 100 customers or something, right? Sometimes you gotta like, reconcile their opinions, but anyway, using them and a core set of customers. and then control releasing it out. And really, the biggest problem we had, in a lot of senses, was internal. And this was a large software company I was working for. It was negotiating the politics internally, but it was, again, typical iterative. Get a minimum viable product out there, test it in the real world, get feedback, and then improve, and then iterate, the next several releases very quickly to get enough momentum so that your sales teams, your sales leadership, is encouraged, right?
In any of these instances, do you have, a small number of clients and a small customer base? So, were you ever at one where there was like 10 customers, and so when releasing this new product, you weren't able, you could dog food it and you could slow roll out, but once you rolled out to your customers, you only had 10 to work with. Do you ever work in that small of an enterprise space, or with these larger enterprise organizations with larger number of customers?
I have worked in that, and that is a lot, in some ways harder, of course,
right?
Because you got to get past the 10.
Yeah.
That's when you got to talk to your product marketing friends. Okay. But that is, that, again, back to sort of that MVP lean iterative model, which most people are sort of aware of, all makes sense, and failing fast, and all these kinds of sort of best practices that DevOps has sort of taken up, right? And so I got involved in that in 2008. Started in software delivery. I went to work for a company called Serena Software, and they were into software change management. And again, the same kind of thing happened. Is we had a core set of customers that said, "Okay, you've done real good, and we can manage, version control and manage our dependencies in our software, but we're having a heck of a time deploying and releasing software into production, and we need your help." And once again, the same kind of model. I teamed up with the company architect. We've spent 9 to 12 months, going to a variety of our customer sites, understanding what their problems were, prototyping a quick version, rolling it out, getting a core set of customers, and sort of bootstrapping, that business. And that was, and one thing I saw, amazing, going to some of the largest companies in the world, what kind of problems and nightmare they were having, and how much effort and time, that they were putting into deploying and releasing software. And these were real bright people, very bright, smart. They had very complex systems.
Yeah.
And so it was a very hard problem to solve, and it's still a hard problem to solve. And we saw that, developers wanting to push change, yet operations wanting to mitigate risk. And so as a product manager, you're sort of, there's a cultural thing going on too, where you got half the side of the house got to move change, got to do features, the business is driving that.
Yeah. Go.
Go. And then you got IT ops saying, well, we got to mitigate risk, and we got compliance, and we got audit, all this stuff. And this is how, really DevOps sort of, grew up, became a phenomena, a movement. There were people trying to solve this, and finally they aggregated into this movement and started developing and codifying practices. And they took from different industries, right? They took from the automotive industry, around lean, and agile, of course, from software development, and they realized that it was a cultural thing, and communication and automation. And so, it was just an incredible experience to see that because and it continues on, of course, today.
Where and following that line, where do you see it going tomorrow? Where do you see product fit into DevOps, and where do you see DevOps going, next 5-10 years?
Yeah. Well, I think they're still not done, right? It's like the company I work for now, OpsMX. We have our sort of vision statement is to deliver software without human intervention, which is a very lofty goal.
Yeah.
Right? So, the idea is, what are the constraints in the system? If you back up and you sort of, click out and take a broad, high-level view of DevOps and the objective, it's really to remove all friction, right? From you got a business idea, and you have to customer value. Okay, from the time the business has an idea to the time it becomes customer value, which is this sort of value stream. How do you optimize? How do you remove? What are the constraints? And there are a lot of constraints, and it's not. And we've found it's not just between dev and ops, right? We have DevSecOps. We've had the security team. We've had the audit compliance team, right? We had the test team. So we have, if you look at the value stream, business has an idea, and how do we translate that into customer value as fast as possible? And the faster we translate that into customer value, the faster we can determine whether it was successful. If we fail, the faster we can fail and learn, right? The faster we can pivot, the faster we can bring new revenue streams online. Everything it's a big competitive advantage, right? But what we're seeing is, so it's a great broader concept in this kind of value stream, is that what are the constraints? Okay, well, you can double click into that, and first it was, it's dev and ops, and then we said, it's QA, it's security, it's audit compliance. What about sales and marketing? So there's
absolutely, yeah.
There's constraints there too, and so you can take this kind of model, and apply it, across the company, and people, they are doing that, right? Organizationally, breaking down organizational silos, leadership, removing constraints between sales and marketing and operations and finance, so you can sort of take these kinds of, capabilities and best practices and apply it organizationally, across your company. And I think that, to me, that's how I see it evolving. I mean, there's still like if you double click down into like just deployment pipelines and stuff, there's a lot of stuff going on there with the sort of AI and ML and automation, right? Sort of converging. So smart automation, you could automate things, but if it's automating the wrong process, big deal, right? So I think that's, key. Now from a product management perspective, I just think, you guys got to be so digitally aware, on social, just keeping abreast of things, understanding what communities, you need to be involved in, and your ear needs to be, right up against the wall to those communities, especially like I work with now open source. We work with open source communities of Spinnaker and Argo in our deployment area. It's very important to understand what are the conversations going on. That's going to help you, guide, your solutions to, over the next couple of years. 5 years, God, that's an eternity. Who knows?
That's great. Thank you so much, Mark. And this is the Product in LA podcast, and we'd like to keep somewhat local. Love to hear your The most LA thing that's happened to you, product or not?
Probably I'll just, one of the best LA things I did was 1980. I held the Olympic torch
Oh, wow.
as the runner was coming for the LA Olympics.
That's terrific. Were you one of the runners?
No, they ran right by my backyard. I was living in Sherman Oaks, right off Sepulveda, and they ran down there, and I just came down my backyard, told my parents, and grabbed the torch and took a photo and enjoyed it.
Oh,
So I love
amazing.
LA.
Ah, me too. Well, thank you again so much, Mark. Terrific hearing about, I believe we had 3 laws. The first one is don't be afraid to cannibalize your own product, because if you don't, someone else will. Law number 2, if you don't do your job, someone else will. And the third law,
Fail fast.
fail fast.
Yeah.
Excellent. Also would like to thank our sponsors again, Uruit. That's URUIT.com. and PMALA at PMA.LA. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time on Product in LA.
Okay. Take care, Ethan.
Thank you, Mark.